Alright, next up on the list is a Bluefin Depot by popular request. Expected this to pop up because it's got the cool moving zone across the sides of the map deal, split mid, so it's a bit of a different stage. So let's try and break it all down. First off, I think that it's important to talk about the center of the stage first, so that's going to be referring to either of these boxes. They're both very similar to each other. There's some slight differences, of course, but most notable on these is an uninkable surface on the back of either of these, as well as having either this wall to climb or this elevator to go up to retreat. So for this part of the map, it is very easy to get stuck down here, as you might imagine. This is a very committal drop. You do have a little bit of control with the elevators over here, though. You can choose to keep them up or down by having someone positioned on it carefully, which can be pretty interesting, and having the elevator up can give you access to the ramp more easily for rotating in that position, which is pretty useful. But for the most part, this stage is about when the zone is on one side, because this layout is kind of confusing. This part in the middle implies that there's a bit of control, but really, most often, there is going to be the zone on one side, and there is going to be absolutely nothing in the middle, which means that most often the fights are very, very separated between the two sides, and a lot about playing this map is about getting space to hold on. Because if you're holding zone and you guys are exclusively on this map side with all four players, it's going to be a little bit awkward. So one thing that makes it a lot easier is pencil for this map. I'm going to name pencil directly because pencil has one of the most broken positions in the game, which is right here. So let's say you're defending, we're attacking this way, and we're against a pencil team. If you push on the right side by the zone, in order to get to the pencil, you have to go all the way across. Otherwise, you have to go on this long flank through mostly open terrain to try to get to the pencil, who can immediately just back up to their spawn if things go poorly, but usually they'll never need to. From here, the pen can control zone, and is immune to most special weapons that aren't stuff like Caster. Even Zuka needs to, drop into here. So it's very tough. Another important position, as you might guess, is the other ramp. Having a player sharking here can be really good. They can threaten to flank on the elevator, they can deal with anyone who tries to flank their team, and they can also very easily deal with drops. So generally, the ramps are the positions you'll play to get some kind of space in the middle of the map. You can also play around this little structure here because it is still very useful for cover. With the amount of walls there are, it is pretty easy to tank stuff. You have to be a little bit careful not to get caught too far back. Ideally, you do want to try and push up here and take this side of the map. Maybe have someone over here so that there won't be any breakaway problems. But getting up there is a little bit tricky. One of the easiest ways can be something like getting a bubble or wall on the elevator, so those weapons are a lot better on this stage as well. Having some kind of long-range weapon try to apply pressure across here is good too. You can typically set up your anchor on this ramp if your team manages to push further ahead. You can try to crab roll or kraken up this wall is another option. But typically getting up there is very difficult if you're facing the enemy team who knows what they're doing. So instead, more often than not, you'll be trying to set up a weapon in this area. This will typically be some really mobile weapon like a brush or dually, or something like a sword that could camp under the ledge. And obviously, this area is just to cut off the enemy team because you don't want them dropping into this lower area. So if you have someone in this area, then it prevents the enemy team from accessing the left side of the stage pretty much entirely. There is a downside to that, though, which is this position actually has a very long time to rotate back. Because if you want to rotate back to this ramp, you have to climb the elevator. If you want to rotate back all the way over here, it's going to take forever. And even if you want to push, you have to paint this wall, jump across, pray the other team doesn't see you, then go all the way over here. Usually, the enemy pencil, or your pencil in this case, can just play right over here, have plenty of cover, be able to paint the zone, and have plenty of room to see this flank coming from a mile away. So while this spot is very useful, the time it takes to rotate out of it to a relevant position if the other team does choose to blitz past you into the zone does lead to it actually causing some problems sometimes. So I kind of like that. I think the positions on this map are a little bit dynamic. I like how the split mids matter. I do wish that it was possible to cross this gap normally without the zone being contested. Like if there was a little bridge under it, it'd make it a lot easier. But I do think it's pretty interesting how you're forced to play around the disadvantage, and I kind of like this route being an awkward position, since I think encouraging teams to be able to push in really quickly into this drop is like a good risk for the defending team as well, but it's an interesting way around it. It just makes the map feel a little bit more dynamic, so I kind of like that. When we're talking about retake, though, there's not too much more I have to add. HP specials are very good on this stage because they help a lot with the drops. If you can get like a bubble down there or a crab, even something like a crab up here could be very useful, but some special to get space. Contesting the zone can be helpful if you're a team that tries to play both sides a little bit more. If your goal is to rotate and take some more space on the ramp or get behind them, then contesting zone is a good way to open up the map a little bit, and definitely use the zone being open to try and cross whichever side you want to play on when possible, so the rotations are a little bit easier. That's definitely important to set up. But besides that, I don't think I have too many notes. The only thing I haven't really talked about too much is this kind of flank for the defending team, getting all the way around, which you can do it, but it's very risky if you get caught. I think you have to be very careful to make sure you're pulling ample attention. Sometimes it might be good to drop and go back up here, use the elevator, but then it could be a little bit obvious what you're doing. Again, this pencil is going to see everything. So the main thing to note is that you really don't have the element of surprise, and if you want to use something like, I don't know, say you're a dually, you want to go around the long way, drop and use a crab over here more safely to clear the pencil, then you're not going to have that crab for this side of the map, and that might be very important for retaking. So you can do this wide flank, but it's very risky that you might accidentally commit too many resources over here. And of course, if there is some front line on the enemy team sharking and able to find a kill on you, then you've just wasted a ton of time on a rotation that was very easy for them, and they can just promptly either move into your spawn or move back over here if you're taking the fight. So I think a lot of this map is knowing which side to push at what time, and just mostly knowing when to drop. I'd say this map and Scorch share a little bit of similarities. Scorch can be a bit different because of how its sides play out, but both of these stages to me have gotten a lot more interesting since HP specials make the one-way drops not as big of a deal, so it becomes a very big dynamic between timing on what kind of positions you want to play, knowing when you want to move in, and trying to take advantage of the map without spreading yourselves too thin or clumping up too much. So yeah, I think that's about all I have to say for Bluefin Depot this time. I hope you all enjoyed myself going through this stage, and let me know what you guys want to see next time. Also, you know what? I think we will talk about Scorch Gorge immediately after. I have some other stages you guys suggested, but this now makes me want to talk about Scorch, so I'm going to go record that now.